De La Soul's 1996 album Stakes is High introduced a new sound, a more serious direction, and a few features from the next generation of producers and MCs. The title track Stakes is High was produced by J Dilla and took some reverse psychology to even happen. But digging into the story and the production of this song, I found the same story mirrored twice within the samples, but in De La Soul's case, the story has a different ending. Today I'm diving into the song Stakes is High, the story behind it, J Dilla's production, diving into the samples used, talking with the legendary DJ and producer House Shoes about the Dilla Unreleased remix.
And he would play me these remixes that are supposed to be coming out, and just like one by one, the official 12 inches would come out and his remix wouldn't be on there.
And seeing how this time around, the story had a different ending. There comes a time in every artist's career when they have an important decision to make. It's usually later in their career after they've become a big deal, released a few albums, and established a sound, and then the music around them begins to shift. They have to decide, am I gonna keep going? Should I keep doing what I've always been doing? Should I move with the changing landscape, or should I dig my heels in and refuse to budge as a response to the changing landscape? There isn't one right answer. This is different for every artist, and we're gonna see a few versions of this story play out today. To start, let's talk about De La Soul. De La Soul's debut album, their debut, I don't know, 3 Feet High and Rising, 1989. It's a classic, it's lighthearted, fun, great music, and was made by Paz the Noose, Maceo, and Dave, aka Trugoy the Dove, getting together with producer Prince Paul, and just making some great music. De La Soul was part of the Native Tongues, a loose collective of artists that included the Jungle Brothers, A Tribe Called Quest, Queen Latifah, Moni Love, and more. And for more on that, you should watch my video all about the Native Tongues. But fast forward to 1993 and 1994, and things are looking a little different. Paz the Noose has described De La's third album as not really doing what we needed it to do. They had been touring with A Tribe Called Quest, who, at this time, were it. The Low End Theory came out in 91, Midnight Marauders in 93. These albums are incredible. It's Tribe at their peak. But for De La Soul, they weren't exactly sure what to do, and their manager told them they should tighten their belts because things were about to get rough for them. As Paz the Noose remembers, we had this album that wasn't doing well, and a lot of different music was changing. Even our fellow brothers, they hit a stride with their music and what they was doing. You got Wu-Tang coming out and all these acts. The music had just changed in a lot of respects, and we changed in the direction we wanted to go. In a nutshell, when all is said and done after touring and doing whatever, when it came around to thinking about another album, another cycle, we were just a little disillusioned. We just wasn't sure about what to do. Paz the Noose, Maceo, and Dave, rest in peace, started working on a few songs with Prince Paul, who had produced their first 3 albums, but they felt like it was a little too zany, too similar to their early stuff, and they wanted to go in a different direction. Prince Paul stepped aside and has said that ultimately, even though it was hard because De La Soul felt like his identity, the end result, Stakes is High, is his favorite De La album. The main sample in the song, Stakes is High, is from the song Swahili Land by Ahmad Jamal from 1974. Check it out, we're gonna dive all the way into this sample in a minute, but for now, let's just grab it and recreate the beat. So this top track right here, this is the Ahmad Jamal song Swahili Land. It's coming in right around 10 minutes long, and it's near the end here. So this highlighted yellow section at the top is the sample. I've copied it down here, and I've pitched it up a half step, 1 semitone, which also increases the speed. Let's take a listen to that. Now, what's interesting about this sample is he's not just playing that and playing drums over it. It's actually sampled 2 individual times with filters on it. So basically what I've done is I've taken this sample here and copied it down to this first orange track right here. And then what I'm doing is I'm filtering it so we're hearing a lot of the mids. Not so much lows here, cutting the highs. We got a lot of mids. Let's hear how that sounds. That's it. Almost sounds like an old radio. But then I've copied this down to another orange track here, and this time, look what I'm filtering. We got just the low end. I'm boosting the low end, I'm cutting everything else. Let's hear how that sounds. And how the track is structured is it starts with just the high part, then the bass comes in after that. But then when we get over here to the verse, it's just the bass part. The other sample is from the James Brown song Mind Power from 1973. The specific part sampled is right here near the beginning, these two highlighted red parts. This part is James Brown saying vibe, vibration. Let's copy those, put those over here where the rest of our project was. Here we go. Let's take a listen to those.
Five vibrations.
This was also pitched down a half step. All right, now let's play through the song. We got the mid filtered part, the low filtered part. We got James Brown. Now let's add some drums. One of the things that sets a Dilla beat apart is his feel. This is something I've talked extensively in other videos about, but you know a Dilla beat when you hear it. If you want to make your own signature groove in your productions, you should check out Groove Builders by Vocal Pockets. They've sponsored this video, so let me quickly show you how easy it is to make your own signature bounce. Think of Groove Builders as a new, better way to quantize. The settings are inspired by top producers and songs across multiple genres. So here I've got a very basic drum pattern, split out here to hi-hat, snare, and kick. Let's take a listen. Nah, I want it more natural. I wanted to have feeling. Let's quickly scroll through the grooves here. Let's see, a bunch of options. I'll apply it to the hi-hats here. I have a bunch of settings I can tweak: timing, random, velocity, quantize. Now let's take a listen. All I've done is apply Groove Builders to the hi-hats, and seconds later this feels completely different. You're also hearing the VD4H feature, which lets your hi-hats have even more bounce by changing the velocities, and also the delay Groove Builders, a set of Groove Builders that allow producers to push the limits of groove. Put that delay on my snare. Let's see, I got one on my kick. Let's see what this is sounding like now. There's a wide set of uses for this, from beginner to advanced producers, letting you craft your own signature groove. To get going with Groove Builders yourself, click the link in the description. De La Soul began working on their next album with their title ready to go, knowing this was their do or die moment. The stakes, you could say, was high. But the original demo of this song is completely different than how it ended up. Just this month, Paz the News posted an original demo of Stakes is High on his Instagram. Check this out.
Now when the stakes is high, damn sure try to do anything to get a piece of the pie. Rectify any styles on the rip, because I'm a champion, or should I say a champion?
If that sample sounds familiar, it's because it's from Smilin' Billy Sweet by the Heath Brothers. Got it here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. You know, the record that Q-Tip made a pause tape beat out of for Nas's One Love, and I made an idiot out of myself trying to recreate it? That's this right here. That's a different video, but same record. This is wild to me to hear the original demo version because it's so different from the final song. Things like this are great to hear, not only for the fun historical part, but for the encouragement that just like the stuff you make, the stuff you love took time to develop and hone and get to where it wants to be. And then there's the remix, which has its own significance, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. Anyway, the final beat, as you know, was produced by J Dilla. At this time, Dilla was a part of the Ummah, a production collective made up of Q-Tip and Ali Shaheed Muhammad from Tribe, and Dilla. Maceo describes the relationship between Paz the Noose and Q-Tip as a little tricky. So when Tip played him this new beat that Dilla had made, the beat that would end up being Stakes is High, he had to get a little clever. As Maceo explained, Tip is playing this new beat for Paz from Dilla, and based on the history that those two have, anytime Paz gave a head nod to some shit, Q-Tip ended up keeping the beat and tried to make something out of it. So he tried to use reverse psychology on this particular one. Stakes is High came up on the beat. Paz was like, it's alright, it's okay. But then secretly goes off in the corner and calls Dave, yo, this is the f***ing beat. I've got to figure out how to get it, but this is it. De La reached out to Dilla separately without Q-Tip knowing. The Ummah would credit their productions to the collective instead of the individual who worked on it, and Dilla wanted some more personal recognition, so he agreed. According to the fantastic book Dilla Time by Dan Charnas, this beat was made by Dilla on an SP1200. This book, by the way, if you're a Dilla fan or just a music fan, is a must read. You've seen my videos, just get it. Christmas list, birthday, I don't know, just buy it, just get it. The samples used in this beat mirror the story of where De La Soul was at. Considering the Q-Tip played Dilla's beat for Pause the Noose, this isn't necessarily a deliberate choice from Dilla, but more of a serendipitous thing that just makes this whole story even better. So let's talk about the first sample, Ahmad Jamal's Swahili Land. This is from a later era of his music. Jamal's best known album is Live at the Pershing, which was released in 1958. And if you haven't heard this album, Spotify listening guide in the description, incredible album. Israel Crosby crushing that descending bass line on But Not For Me. Doom doom da doom doom da boom boom da boom ba boom ba boom. It's incredible. Also, Ahmad Jamal has been sampled many times, but the significance of this specific sample and its place in music history is special. But this song, Swahili Land, is from the 1974 album Jamal Plays Jamal. He's in his later era. He has to decide, is he going to evolve and add new sounds from the shifting musical landscape? Is he going to add in new stuff, or is he going to dig in his heels and stick with what he does best? This is the same decision De La Soul had to make with Stakes is High, but let's keep going. In Ahmad Jamal's case, he incorporated new sounds. Up until 1970, he played exclusively acoustic piano, but in the 70s experimented with electric piano. And on Swahili Land, there's not only electric piano, but this huge sounding horn section. It's still definitely jazz, but a more evolved sound from his work on the Pershing. Ahmad Jamal, by the way, didn't like the term jazz. He preferred American classical music, as opposed to European classical music, which he was also well versed in, and stressed the importance of studying both. I love this because it's building on the tradition of the piano, his instrument, reaching back to Bach and Beethoven, but also including Art Blakey, Duke Ellington, and other jazz musicians. It's not drawing a hard line in the sand separating the two, but drawing a connecting line between the two, showing the evolution of music. I love this so much because this is exactly what great hip-hop producers like J Dilla do. Dilla isn't ignoring or rejecting the music before him, before hip-hop. He's embracing it fully. Swahili Land is the last track on this album, which means Dilla had to actually listen to this album to sample it. He was a fan. He's studying what Ahmad Jamal would call American classical music so that he can do what he does, a newer form of American music, hip-hop, even better. The other sample, James Brown's Mind Power, this is also the last track on The Payback, which means you gotta really listen to this album too. What's crazy about this album is that now it's a classic. It's one of James Brown's finest. The Payback is also a little later era James Brown. It was originally supposed to be the soundtrack to the blaxploitation movie Hell Up in Harlem, but was rejected by the producers because it was, quote, the same old James Brown shit. Which seems like an insane thing to say about James Brown. But James Brown was faced with the same decision. Does he change his sound and evolve it, or does he dig in his heels and do what he does best? In James Brown's case, he dug in his heels and released the soundtrack as his own album, his 37th studio album, The Payback, and it's absolutely incredible. The grooves on this song are just unmatched. Of course, by the time you get to 1979, James Brown is releasing the original Disco Man and trying to claim he invented disco, but the point is this. 3 different artists are all facing the same situation. The music scene around them is shifting. How should they respond? Ahmad Jamal expanded and evolved. James Brown dug his heels in. And De La Soul did a little of both. This album is darker, more serious, and this song hits harder musically, and lyrically, it critiques the state of hip-hop, the commercialization, the sexualization, the 95 Source Awards, drugs, racial injustice, but it still sounds like De La Soul. The back and forth between Paz and Dave is still there, their flow still feels the same. They even say the native tongues has officially been reinstated. They're still definitely themselves, but they're building on the American classical music of the past, creating something new and propelling the next generation of artists and producers forward. This song was one of J Dilla's first big productions. This album features a song with Mos Def and another with Common, who would all go on to create incredible music, being involved in the Soulquarians collective, which was similar to the Native Tongues in many respects. Stakes is High is so incredible because it's simultaneously an evolutionary step forward for De La Soul, for hip-hop, for music in general, and it's propelling music forward for the next generation of musicians and artists. Speaking of the next generation, let's talk about the unreleased Dilla remix. While the Stakes is High beat is great, Dilla also did a remix that sounds, I mean, much more like what you'd associate with his sound.
We be talking about
Vibration.
stakes is high. You know them stakes is high. The instamatic focal point bringing damage to your borough. Be some brothers from the east with the beats that be thunk.
I recently spoke with DJ and producer House Shoes about his part in the unreleased Stakes is High remix.
1997. At this point, I had a portable DAT player at the club on Fridays for the secrets. 90% of the shit was JD shit. I was cramming that shit down motherfuckers' throats. So he would give me tapes and, DAT tapes, and he would play me these remixes that are supposed to be coming out. And just like one by one, the official 12 inches would come out and his remix wouldn't be on there. And I would be the one to call him, like from the record store, time after time, like, bro, we just got the 12 inches, your shit ain't on here. And he had given me a DAT tape with a bunch of remixes on it to play at the club. And I was like, bro, like, let's just bootleg this shit. Like, everyone's acting like they're with your shit, and then they're giving the remixes to somebody else, and 9 times out of 10, the remixes are super mid. Like,
Yeah.
the D'Angelo remix. Like, how do you turn down that Dreaming Eyes of Mine remix?
Yeah.
And that shit just kept happening. It kept happening over and over again. I was working at Street Corner. I had distribution hookups. I had Amir at Fat Beats. Peanut Butter Wolf was my sales rep at TRC. Wolf had the Distro Connect. So we pressed it up and we did it. You know what I mean? I remember driving my fucking escort station wagon to the shipping spot, and it was scraping all the way back to the crib because I had thousands of fucking records in there. And calling Jay, and Jay came over the crib, and my mom popped a bottle of champagne, and I had the MPC 3000 on, and she got like champagne in the 3000. It was crazy. Somebody really fucked me up a few years ago about that because, there's been drama, Dilla-related drama in my life since he passed. And one day somebody was like, man, Shoes, all of them. You put out JD's first record.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, no, I didn't. Like, what are you talking about? And then he's like, bro, the JD Unreleased record is the first record where JD was the artist. And I had to sit down off of that because that's not what the fuck I did it for.
It's right.
Fire. It's got to be on a record. This shit needs to be played. You know what I mean?
Yeah. JD Unreleased, hearing the remix, that sounds more like what people associate with Dilla than the original one. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So the significance of that,
or where he was about to go.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like his full form. Yeah, absolutely. Right. House Shoes is a legend, and this JD Unreleased record was the first record he ever pressed. Talking about setting up the next generation, that was his first record pressing, and now he runs his own record label, Street Corner Music. That clip I just showed you is from our recent conversation. That's dropping on the complimentary YouTube channel Digging the Talks and the Digging the Greats podcast in a couple days. The whole conversation is over an hour and a half long. We get into his career, Detroit hip-hop, his label, a crazy story about the Secret Service. It's a really great conversation. Go subscribe, links in the description. Looking back, Maceo said, let's put it like this. The statement of the record, the response behind the statement, let us know there's a place in this music industry for us. That whether we sell 100,000 records or 100 million records, De La has a significant place in this music business. And all of this is still unfolding and relevant today. Ahmad Jamal passed in April of this year. Dave, aka Trugoy the Dove, passed in February. Rest in peace to both of these legends. Paz posted the original demo of this song earlier this month. And De La Soul's first 6 albums just hit streaming for the first time in March of this year. That's why I'm passionate about this stuff. Everything builds on everything else, and by keeping these albums locked away from modern ears, there's been a massive gap in music history. But that's all already in another video, and to watch that, you gotta click here.